Welcome to Connexion, the channel where everyone's voice matters. My name is Bilitis, or you can call me Actress of Change. And today, let's jump right into it to introduce you to another actor of change. Let me introduce you to Matt Racz. You know, for Matt, as long as he can remember, he has a huge desire to serve humanity and be a force for good. He spent the majority of his 20s building Funderbolt, an impact-driven startup. Going from a novice, first-time entrepreneur to raising millions of dollars in capital and impacting the life of tens of thousands of change makers. At 29, he exited the company to Arizona's fastest-growing software company, CampusLogic, fulfilling a lifelong dream and entering an elite category of entrepreneurs. And with his new company, Optimus You, he now helps business and community leaders strengthen their mindset, live their Optimus You identity, and establish powerful daily protocols that can create a heroic life. Well, welcome, Matt Racz.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the kind and warm welcome.
Yes, well, thank you so much for showing up, Matt, and playing huge already since you can't even remember when. You always wanted to make this difference. And actually, yes, could you tell us more about yourself?
Sure. So again, my name is Matthew Racz, and I'm currently 31. And I recall, actually, it's funny when I shared some of my background with you, I kept thinking, well, there had to have been a moment where, an eliciting moment, a call to adventure, where I went on this path towards wanting to create impact. And it really was when I was back as a sophomore in college. So when I was in school, I went to University of Delaware for operations management, and I studied entrepreneurship. My father was an entrepreneur. He's been in business for 40 years. I've always been incredibly inspired by his story and the life that he was able to give me and my family. But it wasn't until my sophomore year, I was kind of going through the motions, and I kept thinking, man, all I'm doing is just learning theory in a classroom. I have no idea how to apply this to the real world. I don't necessarily want to go down the traditional path of working for a huge company, doing the typical 9 to 5. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just knew that it wasn't my path. And so I kind of felt like I was in the university school system, and I was being put on a path towards a 9 to 5 job. And the whole time, well, that's not really where I want to go. So I kind of had this moment where I started talking to my father. I said, Dad, what do I do? I'm learning all this in school. I want to create a difference in the world. I look at what you're doing in life. I find it so fascinating that you are creating your life, and you're engineering it in a way that you can serve. And he said, well, maybe you should just go into entrepreneurship, and you could do that while you're in school. And this whole kind of reframe of, hey, I could be a creator of my life. I never really thought of it until that moment with my father. I always looked at him as, my hero, my mentor. But it was really when him and I had this conversation when I was just a young adult that I can create my own life. I can create my own path that really activated me. It got me very excited. So I ended up starting a couple of businesses while I was in school. I became very involved in the entrepreneurship program at the University of Delaware. And it was these little tiny decisions to go down a certain path that allowed me to really find my true passion. And my true passion during my entire 20s, from the moment I graduated, I think it was 3 months after I graduated school, all the way up until the age of 29, I founded a company originally called USeed. We eventually changed the name to Funderbolt, but the whole mission was to empower the next generation of college student leaders. And I wanted to give back to students who were in school, help them have more access to funding for out-of-classroom experiences, to help them develop leadership skills, and ultimately to figure out their passions and to be able to communicate why they care about the things that they do. So this company we designed, it was essentially an online fundraising company. We partnered with schools all over the world, which was really exciting. Arizona State University, Princeton, University of Washington. And it was, again, probably one of the most transformational, exciting moments of my life. And I would never trade a minute of my 20s for starting a business, an impact, social driven business, something I was really proud of. But I have to share that as exciting as this path was, I didn't know when I first started it with a couple of my buddies, I did not know the roller coaster ride that I was going to go down. And as exhilarating as it was, and how creative it can be, and how forceful it is in terms of making you grow as a human, it was also one of the most challenging periods of my life. I hit some incredible highs, but I also hit some of the darkest lows I think I've ever experienced in my life running a business. And it's because you can get so caught up with the constant need to achieve higher and higher goals. You're constantly putting the business before yourself and your own happiness, your own health. I became very depressed at certain moments. And it was in this time of uncertainty and really, again, I'll use the word darkness, that I found this program called Optimize.me. And it's run by this guy, Brian Johnson. And if anyone is interested, if there's like one takeaway, is just go on this website, Optimize.me, and just sign up. Like, I'm like the ultimate evangelist for this because it completely changed my entire life. Optimize Me is basically modern science plus ancient wisdom for optimal living. And it taught me how to deal with all the things I was experiencing in my business, the lows, the highs, how to develop self-mastery, how to enhance my mindset, how to live a healthy, balanced life, not just in terms of work, but in my energy and in my love, in terms of my relationships. So it's had a really profound impact on me. And when I essentially exited the business a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that was a new calling for me to say, well, what can I do with my time? These are all different stepping stones. My college career, starting a business in school, doing UC that became Funderbolt, exiting. These are all stepping stones along the human journey. And I find that my next calling, my next journey here is being the founder of Optimus You. And that's what I'm working on right now. And I'm happy to dive deeper into what Optimus You is all about during our call today. But that's just a little bit about me. So I consider myself a impact entrepreneur. I consider myself an optimized coach. And I think some of my best friends might describe me as a philosopher, because what you'll notice in our conversation today, Biltis, is I'm probably going to speak a little philosophically. So feel free to pull me down from the clouds, and I can be a little more concrete. But yeah, it's a little about me.
I will never do that. Like, sorry, dear audience, if you've got to hear the two of us being philosophic, sorry, like, make the most of this.
Love it. Perfect.
And but yeah, thank you so much for opening up, Matt, as well. Like, like how at a certain age you that became from your hero to your source of inspiration to jump from being as well yourself the creator of your life, because you actually noticed that, like, you put him in a milestone because he was your hero, but then you understood why he was your hero. He was your hero because he's doing what he wants. He is the creator of his own life. And that inspire you, I believe, yes, to continue on your path and to start as an entrepreneur. And thank you as well for being so open about sharing, like, the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur, and like and indeed, like, if we're not surrounded either by a coach or a community, we can easily go down in the dark place. And however, you were able to pick yourself up thanks to Optimize and Brian Johnson, who does the magnific philosopher notes as well, which I'm not surprised. That's why you're as well impacted by philosophy. And it's a huge impact for you. And because, so as you are, like, as well, through your experience as a tech pro, what is your opinion actually about the use of technology these days?
It's interesting because I certainly have a love-hate relationship for technology. And I have to say, I love looking up the definitions of words. And what's fascinating about the definition of technology is that it's the skills, methods, and processes used to achieve goals. So I always use, which is very broad, right? Like, that's such a broad term. It'd be like, what's your perspective on government? Well, government is so complex. There's so many different compartments of government. Where do you want me to talk? So when I think of technology, it's so broad. And that's why I have this kind of loving and hateful relationship with it, because I think that technology can certainly be used as a flourishing tool for humanity to create abundance and to reduce suffering, and to serve, right? But I think that technology can also be used for destructive reasons, for selfish reasons, for reasons that could really go against the long-term goals of humanity versus the short-term, hey, I want things now kind of idea. So when I think of like technology, where I see myself kind of playing with technology right now is I'm looking at basically what are the things I'm interacting with. So I think a lot of, all of us are kind of suffering from the addiction to our phones and to our computers and to the TVs and the media, etc. All these different inputs that we're exposing ourselves to. And, again, like I think being able to, I wouldn't have connected with you had it not been for Instagram, right? I wouldn't have been able to communicate with you like this without Zoom. So these are amazing technologies that we get to utilize for connecting and collaborating and growing and sharing. But at the same time, I notice I'll check my phone like 100,000 times a day, right? So it's kind of using me. And it's creating this dopamine kick where I'm constantly becoming addicted to it. And it's these habits, these unconscious triggers that are pushing us away from being able to focus on the work that matters most. So I think when it comes to technology, we need to really look at the human consciousness behind the technology. We need to think about the human behind it. So one of my favorite authors is Yuval Noah Harari, and he wrote 21st Lessons for the 21st Century. And, and a couple of other books I think are phenomenal, like Sapiens and whatnot. But one of the quotes I thought was so profound by him was, for every minute and every dollar that we spend improving artificial intelligence, don't you think it would be wise if we spent a minute and a dollar in advancing the human consciousness? And that quote kind of blew my mind, because in technology, in a capitalistic society, we're always thinking about what's the new tool? How do I make more money off of this innovation, right? It's go, 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 improve, 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 right? And it's typically at the expense of people's happiness, people's joy, people's health, the environment, animals, right? It's all for technological and capitalistic growth. So again, I apologize for being very philosophical here, but I do feel very strongly about this, that we need to really become more conscious in how we are using our technology. And also we need to become more conscious around what technologies we're building and why, right? Like I think everyone or most people now have probably seen the documentary, The Social Dilemma. Right. And what a profound, I don't think anyone who's ever seen that movie, I don't think anyone at the end is reaching for their phone. I think everyone's like, oh, maybe I should put my phone away for a little while. Right.
Yes.
So I don't know. I think technology is fascinating and it could be used to heal, the earth. I think it could be used to help free humanity and to create a more globalized society with more empathy and trust, etc. But I do think that it's every single individual's responsibility to really think about how they're using their technology, if the technology is in fact using them. That's a really important shift. And being able to kind of put technology away. Like I write in my notebook, every morning. A lot of people have apps and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying I'm anti-technology by any means. But I love going old school. I get off my computer at a certain time every day. I don't go on my phone after 6 p.m. These are small things that add up. But when I think of technology, even as a tech entrepreneur, the point isn't, I don't think, to just build technology. I think the point is to build technology that can help humanity and to serve profoundly. So kind of my philosophy on technology. And I don't think I would ever start another business where it was just to make money. I wouldn't want to just develop an innovation strictly to make money. I would want to build something that can actually help humanity.
Thank you for your share, Matt. And as well, like what you really define very clearly is that like it's one same coin, but two sides, like anything, like one side where technology, you can use it to reach anyone, and it's limitless how it can serve you. And on the other side of the coin, how much it can deserve us. So it's really about clarifying this relationship between who is the master and who is the servant in the use of the technology.
Yeah, like it kind of like terrifies me a little bit when I think of the artificial intelligence stuff that we're designing. Like I think Neuralink, Elon Musk with Neuralink, I think it's super fascinating. But at the same time, like, how is this like not regulated more? Like any company can just build these new innovations that could have massive implications on human society and the human potential. It's just kind of, not that I'm nervous or scared of it, but I don't necessarily always know if what we're designing as technology is being integrated and if everyone really understands the true implications or even the unintended consequences of a new technology. And that's kind of where I spend some of my time reflecting is I always want to think, the positive side of things. Okay, how could we use this to be productive? But it's human anatomy. We have automatic negative thoughts. We go to the negative, right? And so I kind of think about, wow, these new innovations are coming out. This is fascinating, but how might it go wrong? How might we need to kind of think about this from more of a societal standpoint? How might this maybe hinder certain people? I think it's worth discussing.
Yes, definitely. There is more to touch on, and it's like at the end, like electricity. You can use it to cook a meal, or before to cook a man. So it's all about how we use it. Like a knife is helpful to cut a piece of meat, but then in the hands of someone else, it can be dangerous. So it's very about being aware, and so that is really what we're doing here. We are planting a seed for everyone watching, like to raise awareness on how they're using their technology for them to serve them, to make it a benefit to them instead of the reverse. And if we go back to self-growth, actually, like Matt, as you get deeper for you into self-growth, how was impacted your daily life and choices? And actually, how old were you when you started to be interested more in self-growth? Did it arrive straight away when you reached out to the course of Optimize, or a bit before?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think it really was, when you become like conscious, right, in terms of like, oh, I'm a human being, and I'm no longer just obeying rules from society and parents, right? Like, I think it was probably high school where I started getting more activated and more confident in who I was and what my capabilities were. But again, I really think it was college where I started to learn on my own. I wasn't just accepting the education I was being given, right? Like, I was now actively reading books outside my coursework in college, which I feel like is like unheard of. Like, who's adding more work, who's reading more than what they're already given in college. And I remember one of the books that I read as a sophomore in college was The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And I think at that time, yeah, it was like revolutionary. It completely blew my mind, his shift in how humans can live and the different paths you can take. And his whole thing was really just, how do you optimize your life so you can essentially work less and live more? And I thought, wow, what a fundamentally amazing idea, because I used to think that I had to work till I was 65 years old and hopefully I had some money in the bank to retire during, while I'm older. And his point was, well, no, you can actually enjoy your life every year, every moment. And I thought that was a really cool concept. And I started learning from him all these different tools to optimize. I feel like Tim Ferriss was my original Brian Johnson. And it led me down the path. Again, all these different stepping stones is how I arrived at Optimize. But I don't think it was Optimize that triggered my curiosity into self-growth. It was what totally exponentially grew my ability to take more ownership of my life and to live with, Arrete, which I think is one of the most beautiful words I learned through Optimize. It's a Greek word for essentially excellence or virtue. And more specifically, it's really about how do you be the best version of yourself moment to moment to moment to moment. In each eternal now, how are you choosing the most empowered decision? And that concept, wow, it kind of, have you ever heard of Arrete? Like, is that a concept you've heard?
No. I was going to ask you to repeat the word, because I know, like, for everyone to get this one. How do you say again? Arrete?
So it's Arrete, and it's spelled Arete.
Okay.
And this concept is what I learned through Optimize Me, and it really is, I think, the foundation of who I aspire to be. I think there is, like, when I think of Optimus You, for instance, the idea of Optimus means best, optimal. It doesn't mean perfect by any means. I'm not trying to say be perfect. That doesn't even exist. So if we're chasing perfection, stop it. You're going to go nowhere. You'll be very frustrated. But you can be the best version of yourself. You can actually choose in each moment the best decision. And a lot, I think, in terms of personal growth and development and self-actualization is understanding what Viktor Frankl said when he said, in between stimulus and response, there is your ability to choose, and that is your freedom. And that, to me, is your potential to live through Arrete, to become the Optimus version of yourself. So I don't know. I think it was, the stepping stone, kind of coming back to the origin. It was a stepping stone, but it was going from the college career. When you're in a startup, a high growth startup, that really pushes you to grow in areas you never thought possible. Like, I was working more hours than I ever thought I would ever work. I was reading more than I ever read in my life. Not just reading, but I was reading and applying, like, almost simultaneously. It was like just in time learning.
Yes.
Because you have to, right? And I think the Optimize program was the missing piece. Starting a company and a startup really forces you to understand business and creativity and innovation. But that's just work. That's one pillar of your life. And I was going all in on work. I mean, I didn't date anyone for 6 months or 6 years. I mean, my girlfriend was my business, basically, right? And she was very needy. She needed me all the time. She didn't care if I needed rest. I always had to be on call. So yeah, I think the Optimize program was really a more holistic approach to self-development and growth, and fueled with a mission and a purpose for work, create some really magical opportunities. But I'm just at the beginning myself.
Wow.
Like, I'm curious, like, on your end, like, I know you've been in this space for so long too, right? Like, you're all about personal growth and development and self-actualization. Like, it's a never ending process, right?
Oh no, it's because you never know what you don't know, and so the more you know, the more you realize you don't know enough. Like, you don't know. So and so one bring one another, and it's endless. And especially for the two of us who want to make a difference in the life of others through our coaching, we must always go and progress, because we will never be able to help others up to the level we are. So we need to keep moving forward if we want to bring others with us to a higher level that they can be. And for that, we need ourselves to continue to as well be coach ourselves, to learn, to grow, and then to be able to bring others with us.
I know, I totally agree. And it's interesting about growth is I always thought growth meant that you had to be growing at all times. Like if you ever had a setback, then you should shame yourself. That's what I used to do, right? That's perfectionism. Oh, I'm on, and all of a sudden I get knocked down, right? And I'm off my heroic path. I might, fall back on negative patterns, and behaviors. I might have a really negative mindset. Maybe I'm not sleeping. So therefore I'm anti-Matt. I'm like the angriest man in the world if I don't get enough sleep. I remember when I was running the company, all my team members would say, "Oh gosh, yeah, this is pre-coffee Matt. You don't want to be around pre-coffee Matt."
But now, actually, you don't even drink coffee anymore, no? Isn't it? A bit less. It's a tough subject.
I officially do not drink any caffeine anymore.
Wow.
And that's it's funny the reactions I get when I share that with people, because some people will say, "Wow, that's incredible, like good for you, like that's amazing." And not that I'm looking for accolades by any means, but then I have other people where I feel they're like punching me with their eyes. They're like, "How dare you say that you're not drinking coffee? Like, are you insane?" Like, coffee is a very precious thing, I think, in a lot of people's lives, and it certainly was for me. But just a little backstory of why do I no longer drink caffeine? To me, it's about being optimal, and it's about willpower and becoming the best version of myself. So what I noticed is I was completely addicted to caffeine for a decade, right? My entire 20s, all I was doing subconsciously is I'd wake up, chug coffee. I wouldn't be able to get to work if I didn't have it. Throughout the day, I'd be burning myself so hot, and I'd have so much stress, so much on my mind, that by 1 o'clock, I'd have to have an energy drink or more caffeine. There's also moments, I'm not proud of this by any means, but there are moments where I was taking Adderall and Vyvanse. I'm not prescribed that. Why am I taking these things? And it's to make me focus more and have higher performance, right? Like, why am I doing these things? It's very silly to put these inputs in my body, because, and caffeine specifically, caffeine's a drug. It's a stimulant, right? It is literally putting us into a fight or flight mode. So in December 1st, I went off caffeine, and I had massive withdrawal for the first week. It was the worst week of my life.
Wow.
That's very exaggerated. That's not true, but it was very challenging, right? Like I had the typical symptoms, super foggy. That was probably the worst symptom of it all. I had the headaches, I couldn't sleep well, but the fogginess, like, I love thinking, I love communicating, and I felt like a total idiot. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it was. And I don't know, like, have you ever not had coffee for a little bit and had any of these? Like, I don't know, do you drink coffee?
Yeah, no, and like that's the thing, is that I actually, when I was drinking coffee, was during working within the hospitality industry, just one coffee, one shot a day, and actually, as soon as I left the industry, I stopped this habit. So because I wasn't that much addicted to it and not drinking that much of it, I think I didn't feel that much impact of leaving the caffeine. So then I'm a tea drinker, so maybe as well there is some how do we say, caffeine as well on the tea. So yeah, no, feeling good. It's not too much for me. It's not. I don't feel it. Like, if I don't have it, it's all good.
Well, that's what you get when you're using caffeine in moderation, right? Like, you're doing great. Like, you're not abusing caffeine. I was abusing caffeine, abusing it. So when I went off, it totally threw me for a whirlwind, and it was kind of scary, because I remember thinking, like, I can't afford to be off my game. Like, I still have a job. I'm still working. I still have, big, hairy, audacious goals I'm trying to strive. I like to exercise. I was sleeping like 12 hours a day. During the middle of the day, I had to take like a 20-minute nap. I mean, it was ludicrous how much I was kind of suffering from getting off of caffeine. But by day 6, it was like I could feel it in my veins. I had so much natural energy, and that was why I wanted to do it, because I didn't want to have to resort to borrowed energy, fake energy from caffeine. I wanted to better regulate my body and my sleep such that I can actually show up with my own sustainable energy. That is why I wanted to do it. It had nothing to do with saying, oh, I just want to get off of caffeine and look at me, I'm off caffeine. It had nothing to do with that. It was the higher purpose of, I wanted to have a higher sense of self. I wanted to have self-control. I wanted to understand my impulses. I had literal cravings. I still do, because I'm off caffeine. I have cravings for caffeine. It's crazy. I mean, like in the States, you can't go a block without literally like hitting your face against a coffee shop. It's everywhere. There's caffeine in Excedrin and pain medicine. Like there's caffeine in chocolate. You know, there's caffeine in so many things that we don't realize. And this is, again, a stimulant. It's putting our nervous system into fight or flight. Your heart is beating faster. It's suppressing your hunger. So I wanted to better understand, what are the inputs that I'm allowing, even if it's subconsciously or unconscious, whatever, I'm allowing this to be in my body, and it's literally causing me to behave certain ways, and it's creating an output. And that output was more anxiety. I was rushing things. I was focused, but it was like an unfocused focus. It was always like I got to go here and I got to go. It was like chaotic.
One thing to one another. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you get off it, you kind of are forced to slow down. And I think that what's so funny is, it forces you to slow down to your natural speed. And that to me has been really fascinating as well, is just understanding, how do I progress and achieve goals, but at the proper speed? I don't want to be hasty, right? Like if you're hasty, then you're going to likely miss things. You're going to make mistakes. I want to be thoughtful and think through things. It doesn't mean I want to be slow or lazy. Yeah. But this is all kind of part of it. And, you know, the higher piece of this, you know, if we take it up even a step above, it's all about willpower. You know, they say willpower is the queen of virtue. And if you want to self-actualize and optimize, and you need to get a handle of your willpower. And I realized that I had zero willpower when it came to caffeine. You also start realizing that when you get off of something like caffeine and you start building that self-confidence, like, whoa, if I could do this, what else can I do? Like, I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to instill a new habit or get rid of a habit, and then you go, wait, I'm like doing this habit. Like, what else could I be doing that would benefit my life? Like, has that happened to you at all? Like doing this habit, like what else could I be doing that would benefit my life? Like, has that happened to you at all?
Yes, definitely. Like, you know, when it's like, when I was building my morning routine, I could say I was consistent with, like, for example, doing my yoga, and then what can I add to it? So then I add meditation. So then I'm able to build this routine where I do yoga, I do meditation, and then, well, let's include a bit of reading, and then bit by bit, you have an hour to yourself minimum, and where you started with one thing, and now for me it's like a minimum of 5 things I do for my morning routine, and it's consistent. And as well, to go back on what you were saying on willpower, what I feel is even stronger than willpower, and that you have expressed now, is the habits, because it's actually like at one point the willpower can decrease. However, if you turn that into a habit, it requires less willpower to get the habit down because it becomes automatic.
Totally.
What do you think on that? Yeah.
100%, right? So that is really the power. And it's so cool because I'd imagine there's a version of Bilitis who didn't have that morning routine. Exactly. And now there's a version of Bilitis with that morning routine. And I would imagine, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would imagine the Bilitis with that morning routine has more joy, more energy, feels more fulfilled, has more self-care, more drive, right? So it's these little things that we do daily that can literally transform our lives. And to your point, it takes willpower. They say that we have, it's interesting, willpower, there's people who claim, and there's research that says our willpower is finite. We have finite willpower. It's kind of like you can strengthen your willpower muscle, just like when you lift, weights, you can build your biceps, right? These are muscles. But if you exercise your biceps too much, you could fatigue them. They get tired, right?
Exactly.
So there's one area that believes that that's the case. And it's true, right? Like if you're constantly practicing willpower throughout the day, you kind of get depleted and your energy goes away, especially if you're stressed out. If you have more stress, your willpower goes down. Less stress, your willpower goes up. So that's an interesting correlation. Like I notice that when I act against my higher self, it's usually when I'm most stressed. Like I need like a little fix, like, okay, I'll have some ice cream, or, I'll watch some TV, whatever it might be. Things I don't typically do. I'll typically read or whatever. So I think that's important. But the more that you can realize, and this is an interesting counter to that, is that there's also the field that believes that willpower is infinite. And the reason they say that is because it's all about your attitude with willpower. So if your attitude is, oh my gosh, this is so exhausting, having to practice these habits or to have this willpower, etc. If your attitude is negative, then it's going to drain you. Right? But if you show up and go, whoa, my willpower is energizing me, it's actually going to energize you and you don't feel depleted. So, to bring this back to center, your habits, your morning routine. If I'm waking up and going and drudging through my meditation, I'm like, geez, I just need to check this box. I'm so stressed out, blah, blah. Yeah, it's going to kind of drain you having to do these little activities. You can force yourself to do it and have the willpower. But if you approach it from a really positive, abundant standpoint and say, hey, I'm excited to do these things. It's actually
why you do them. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm curious, like for you, when you started your habits in the morning, was there a why for you? Because like I have a why for mine, but I'm so curious about other people's whys.
Yes, definitely. I love the question, and yes. So for me, what got me into doing my routine, my morning routine, is that like we were in 2018, August 2018, and I was working within the hospitality industry, and I had to take a break from the hospitality industry before it breaks me. And I was about to be in burnout. So then I took a step back. I went for traveling and backpacking through Europe, Asia, Australia. And during this time, I went to do a yoga retreat. And so there I get to learn how important it was to start with yoga my day for to have a space for me. And it started through this yoga retreat, but as well like reading books like this was a bit later, but high performance habits of Brendon Burchard, or Robin Sharma through his concept, and later on the 5 a.m. club, and having a strong start, a strong beginning of the day to help you like start your day like a winner already. And because my big why was I have to serve myself first to be able to serve others.
Well, it reminds me of like, when you're on a plane and they're telling you about like the oxygen mask.
Yes,
and you ever had to put on,
exactly.
they say, put on yourself first before you put on anyone else.
Exactly.
It kind of reminds me of that a little bit. You got to take care of yourself if you want to serve profoundly. It's just, and it's kind of crazy. The more you invest in yourself from a non-materialistic, non-ego standpoint, right? Like, again, it's the attitude, how you approach things really freaking matters. If you're coming at it because I want to serve more profoundly, so I'm going to invest myself, man, that's going to unlock some incredible things. And that's where these daily habits, and they don't have to be daily. I have habits that are weekly. I have habits that are monthly. You can figure out the cadence of certain activities that you need to or want to do to invest in yourself. That can be profound. But when you do these, these are out. To me, habits are technology. They're a process, right? Like, because technology is methods and processes. Well, habits tend to just be algorithms. So it's just a system that we're putting in place. And to me, that's another version of technology. Like, we are using a method and a process to essentially achieve a goal. So I don't know. I think overall, Bill, is like diving into optimizing habits can probably be one of the fastest ways to increasing our vitality and how we show up.
Yes, definitely. And talking about, optimizing like our habit and routine. Would you like to share with us what are some of routine or habit you want to share with us to maintain and optimize our mindset, energy, and work?
Yeah, no problem. So I think a lot of people have probably heard this, but your day starts the night before. Your morning starts the night before. So, I think of an AM ritual and a PM ritual. So I have things I do first thing I wake up, and I have things I do before I'm going to bed. And these are connected, they're totally integrated with each other. So first, I like to think about, before I even get into the habits I'm setting, before we even talk about habits, to me, it really comes down to identity. Who are you at your best? This is the Optimus You. Like, really think about, like, how do you define the best version of yourself? How do you feel? What are the things you do? What are the things you don't do? Really go through that creative process, because what we want to do is we want to have identity shift. We want to go from where we are today, our status quo. I sometimes communicate as my anti-me, like anti-Matt. So I've got Optimus Matt and I've got anti-Matt, and they're always raging against each other, right? They're always battling it out. And my job as Matt Racz is to ensure that Optimus Matt is winning the war. May not necessarily win every battle, but he's winning the war. So define your Optimus You. And that includes also your virtues, right? Like, what virtues do you stand for? Because I believe that virtues are our guiding stars in life. Like, anytime I get knocked off balance, or I need to make a decision, I think about, okay, what's the most virtuous decision to make in this moment? And so I really think getting a clear sense of your identity is critical before you even start thinking about, and I guess you could adopt habits immediately. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think a really interesting first phase is getting your identity on lockdown, because it's going to then translate. It goes identity, virtues, and then your behavior. And your behavior is the habits, right? So it comes last. A lot of us will actually operate kind of like the inverse. We operate off of our feelings and emotions, right? So if I'm feeling tired, then it's going to dictate my behavior, and then I'm going to feel a certain way about my identity. So for instance, I might have the intention to wake up at 5 a.m. so I can go to the gym, so I can feel fulfilled and live heroically. Well, 5 a.m. hits, I'm tired, I say, whatever. I hit the snooze button, I go back to sleep, and I wake up late and I don't end up working out. Okay, well, if we flip that, we now know, no, my virtue is discipline, and I'm going to be disciplined, and commitment. So therefore, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do the habit. because habits and identity are totally integrated. And if we only think about habits alone, it's really hard to build and maintain and sustain those habits over time. Like, I'd imagine built this on your end. You're like, hey, like, I'm an actor of change, right? I'm an actress of change. So that's my identity. And I would imagine that fuels a lot of how you show up in your habits, right? So I think, again, the identity piece is so critical, but getting into some of the habits, I think itself is, I think of in terms of like mindset. So one of the first things I want to develop is, and I guess this is still kind of identity, to be honest. I apologize. I'm on identity for a little while here.
Let's go on identity, because it's as well one of the first things that touch Tony Robbins. Like he was recently doing a challenge for New Year, New You. And the first thing he spent time on was identity. It was about identifying the old story we tell ourselves and the new story we want to tell ourselves. And then moving on the second part about the identity. What was our old identity? And what is a new one that we want to build? And so that's why I think like it's such a big part of us. That's why I think it's what comes to you now. It's unavoidable.
Well, and I think especially with what's going on in the world right now, I think so many of us are in a transitionary phase where like we're being shooken up. Either we're losing jobs or, we're working from home. Like things are just different. And I think it's causing us to kind of reflect on like, well, wait, what am I doing in my life? Is this really what I'm happy about doing? I've been so focused on these things. These are my habits. I think more and more people are trying to figure out, well, wait, there's more to life. I can be more. I'm capable of more. How do I achieve that? Where do I go? What's the journey like? So yeah, I think the identity piece is critical. And so kind of coming back to it, anti-fragile mindset is a concept that blew my mind. Anti-fragile mindset blew my mind. There you go. Well said. Essentially, the idea is we can get knocked down and bruised and punched and then literally be fragile. We break, right? We can break by getting punched. Or the anti-fragile mindset is obstacles make me stronger. The more you hit me, the more you punch me, the more challenges I face, the stronger I get. This is an attitude, right? Like what our attitude is towards what we experience is co-creating our experience and more of our future. So I think that one of the things we need to develop is really thinking through how do we become more anti-fragile in what we're experiencing throughout pretty much every area of our life. A good example would be that they give in the optimized program around this is a flame versus a fire. So a wind if you have a candle and a wind comes by, it's going to just blow it out. Fragile.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? But if you have a fire and wind comes through it, it fuels the fire. The fire grows. Right? And that's what we're really talking about is how do we use everything in our path to fuel us, to make us stronger? And so again, it is a shift away from like kind of being like a victim. I don't really like using like victim terminology, but it's like, it really is moving away from like, oh, like this was so hard. Like, I can't believe it. Like, or I messed up, or why are things going this way? And it's just like, relax, take a step back. And how can this actually be helping you? Is there a lesson to learn? Is this making you stronger? Do you have a second chance to do it better? Right? Like that's what it's all about. So I think the identity piece is a lot of what, you stand for is self-growth. If you want to grow, then we have to change our identity into a grower. And to grow means to accept challenges wholeheartedly and to conquer those challenges. Like we need to stretch beyond our comfort zones. If we have comfort zones, we have to stretch beyond them. Not so much that we break, right? That's bad too. You can go too far in self-development and you could burn out, you could break down, and that can be really negative, but we do need to push ourselves. So I don't know if there's anything in there that you wanted to dive deeper on or whatnot, but I'm happy to dive more into, actual habits. I know that's the real question.
But yes, actually, to bounce back on what you were mentioning about being stronger and use what's going on into our life as a way to make us stronger, it goes back as well. Again, Tony Robbins, probably I'm talking a lot about Tony Robbins these days because of the challenge and so on we had a couple of weeks ago. But it's about, the main thing is about, life is not happening to you, but for you. And it's exactly a recap of what you just said about using the stones that life throw at us to build a castle.
100%. I love that. And I'll tell you what, in addition, it reminds me of Ed Milet. He's another person that I've followed for quite some time, and he's phenomenal. His content is just stellar. And to be honest, I haven't listened to him in a while. I need to get back on his podcast, but I remember he brought up that same point, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. But he also, and I've heard this in different areas, I heard this in the Optimized program as well, but one of the things he shared in one of his talks, he goes, this is what my definition of hell is. I go, okay, this is interesting. It's when you're on your deathbed and essentially you have that vision and you're talking to God and you're at the gate and he goes, let me introduce you to this person. And you're like, well, who's this person? He goes, this is who you could have been. Here's who you were and the decisions you made. And here was your potential. Here's the person who made better decisions, who served more heroically, who put others before them, who chased their dreams, took risks. And you get to watch the life of that person that you could have been. And that kind of has always stuck in my mind, wow, you're absolutely right. That would be hell. To see who you could have been, the impact that you could have made, the challenges you could have overcome, the decisions you could have made. That's profound. So again, from an identity standpoint, this stuff matters because it's life and life matters. Anyone who's watching, I really encourage you to reflect on that. Where are you in your journey? Is now the right time to buckle down and say, hey, I know where I'm at. I know what I'm capable of. How do we close that gap? And you can close that gap through some habits, right? Of course, identity shifts, et cetera. But this is where the habits can really start building momentum. And, if we come back into the habit conversation, it's in the evening, we need to stop working. One of the things that I had the biggest challenge with when I was running Funderbolt was work never ended. There was no boundaries. I was getting 3 hours of sleep every night. It was totally unsustainable. So, now what I do is I have a shutdown complete, right? So at 6 p.m., no matter what, I'm done working. And typically, believe it or not, I'm done working before that now, which is amazing. I now am just optimizing my schedule to be more effective and more productive in my day. But yeah, 6 p.m., it's done. I can do work tomorrow. It's all good. I'm not living to work. It's all good. So some of the evening rituals, have a shutdown complete, be done with work, have a digital sunset, right? These are all concepts from the Optimized program. They're phenomenal. A digital sunset means you're off technology. And I don't mean just social media. I mean your phone completely, your TV, your computer, you don't need it. And in fact, it's blowing up your mind and it's totally getting you off your circadian rhythm, right? In the evening, we need to get prepared for sleep. Well, we're trying to produce melatonin so we can get prepared for sleep, but we keep blowing up our minds and our eyes with blue light. So we need to get rid of that. So and also it just makes our minds race. One of the worst things you could do right before you go to bed is be on your phone and start scrolling. It's blowing up your mind. So get off of the technology in the evening. And I would also recommend, and these are all part of a nighttime ritual, right? Things that you can do as habits that you do every day. You can check them off. I highly encourage you to make your room kind of like a cave where it's super dark, and you've got the only orange light, and make it cold. These are all little habits that can actually optimize your sleep, because if you can optimize your sleep and recovery and maximize your rest, then you can wake up feeling fully refreshed. And hey, you won't need caffeine, right? Like that's a crazy idea that you can actually get enough sleep so you don't need caffeine. Like crazy idea.
Some of us, yeah.
But those are some of the things. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any evening habits that you do that are productive to help you set you up for the next day as well? Like I'm curious what you've got going on.
Definitely. So yeah. So first is about like even before dinner to have clear on what I'm going to do the next day. So my agenda is clear. I'm prepared for the next day. Then it's family time. So dinner with my family, and then like around like 9:30 p.m. is where the night routine starts, where already I'm not on the phone since half an hour. So yeah, 8 p.m. After 8 p.m. no more phone. Then after like doing the evening routine is all about for me like taking my agenda where it's at the same time my journal where I write 5 things I'm grateful for that have happened during the day, thanks to people I've met, I've talked to, project I've accomplished, and then to move on a little part of journaling where I write what I have accomplished, where I could be better at, what are things that I could have been better at, and how, and yeah, like doing a small recap on the day, like what were the learnings, the thoughts, and the progress, that if there is progress to be made, and then reading like 15-20 minutes reading. And right now I'm about to finish the biography of Nelson Mandela, A Long Walk to Freedom. And it's as well a long book to read, like it's over 800 pages, but it worth each single page. And this makes it difficult actually to close the book and to go to bed. So when you choose a book, everyone, like, be careful, it's not something you can be passionate of. If not, you're going to lose the result of going to fall asleep. But yes, like gratitude, journaling, and reading.
I love that. And I love the fact you've got like time for the family, like relationships, etc. Like that's so important. And that's really what the evenings are for, right? It's like we control or have the most control over our evenings and our mornings. So that's where like these habit stacks are most effective, you know? And I think, you know, the evenings is about getting ready to go to sleep. But it's also about spending time with people, right? Like enjoy, like think of like thousands of years ago when we were hunters and gatherers, like, you know, they'd go out and kill the animals and they'd come back and they'd sit around a fire and they would eat food together, right? Like it'd be about community and sharing and laughter, etc. Like that's what the evenings are for, right? Winding down, reflecting on the day, how you want to show up tomorrow. Like these are really great habits to instill. And I have to be honest, I'm not consistent on all these every evening, right? Like it's, again, that's perfectionism. It's really hard to be perfect. But I think the evening routine is so critical. I never used to have one. I used to always have a morning, but I never made the connection. Like the evening routine is what fuels the morning. But that leads me to even to the morning. Like I love waking up at the same time every morning. Like that's a huge one. I try not to snooze my alarm. Like I'm not one of those people that can wake up without an alarm. I'm trying to get there, Abilitas. Yeah, I'm really trying to get there.
I'm working on that too. And Matt, actually, like, because we could go on forever, because we love like sharing as well our growth tip and how we're doing through this learning curve, and that we're so passionate about it, everyone, that we could speak on and on. And for everyone to continue on getting to know you further, Matt, where can we reach you out?
Yeah, so you can reach me on Instagram. My handle is at Optimus, OPTIMUS _ you, YOU. So Optimus _ you.
Wow, fantastic. And well, Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to dive really deep into your own story, how self-growth has as well made the man you are today and the man you're becoming, because you seem like so driven toward the best version of yourself that you want to be. And you're already like driven to show up as like super optimized Matt, and you're so aware about the importance of how to show up each single moment as this version. And it's I think it's important for everyone, for the audience, to know that that this is possible. Like, we can decide. We have a power of decision, and it's about ourselves to take the decision to step back on our past story and to reinstore a new story, a new identity. So thank you so much, Matt, for coming on Connection.
It was my absolute pleasure, a total honor. Bilitis, thank you for inviting me on your show, and thank you for everything you do with Connection. It's incredible. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. And as everyone, as you know, Connection really like support Gifted Dream Foundation. You know, Gifted Dream Foundation, like, without the founder of Gifted Dream Foundation, Ida Sabri, this channel won't exist, because she was the number one to believe on the project of Connection, where everyone voice matters. And so, with no surprise, Connection supports Gifted Dream. And Gifted Dream really aims to serve, at first, in terms of education, to children over Kenya, children with discapacities, but as well to empower women with higher education in India. However, since COVID started, well, the shift has arrived from education to nutrition. That is why the food parcel movement is still on today, you know. Did you know that for $2 a day, you could feed a family of 5? So, you know, it's in getting our hands together that we can make a difference. So by knowing as well about what's going on backstage, I can tell you that your donation makes a difference in the life of these families that can survive and as well continue to have some more hope day after day that things are going to be better. So you can make a donation today. The link is on the description box below. And thank you once again for watching Connection. Go ahead, subscribe, and like this, you'll be the first one to know about the next episode. And once again, let's thank our guest on Connection, Matt Racz. Thank you so much, Matt.
Hey, thank you.